So this would be the CPC meeting for the town of Hubbardston, which Sandra has a whole speech for that, but I don't know it.
Okay.
Did any of you guys print out the agenda?
Yes.
Okay. Does anybody need a copy of the agenda? Oh, I should call it to order officially. The CPC meeting is now called to order at 7:03. Does anybody need a copy of the agenda, though?
I don't have one. No.
If you can just pass that around.
There we go. You're all set, right? Oops, I have an extra here. Do you have one?
I have it online, thank you.
Okay. Do these guys want one?
They could have one. That would be helpful, so they can follow along.
Oh, these are all the same, okay.
Yeah, they're all the same.
Okay. All right.
Okay. And members of the public, could you identify yourself for the record?
Mike Stahl, 5 Lombard Road.
And,
Christine Barbera. Are you ready for this one?
yes?
17, Old Princeton Road cutoff. I see you're not ready.
I don't need to know that. Are either of you here for public comments or questions?
Nope.
Okay,
Observing.
lovely.
Observation also.
So our first agenda item is approval of minutes. I have the minutes here in case you guys needed copies. Did you need a copy?
I printed those.
Okay. Did you need a copy?
If you have an extra, I was going to do that on my
There
phone.
you go. Do you need one or you got it on there?
I have it, thank
Do
you.
you guys want to, do you want to see the minutes from last meeting?
No, I watched the video, thanks.
Okay. So I'll give you guys a second to review. And I'm just going to quickly interject here that now that I'm chair, I can't motion or second, so you guys have to motion and second to approve.
I'll just go ahead and make a motion that we accept the meeting minutes of January 30th, 2024 as they have been presented.
I'll second that. Susan Worth.
All in favor?
Okay.
So
Aye.
they shall be approved then. And I will send those off to town clerk, I guess. All right. So now we come to the fun-filled old business. CPA applications. And I'm going to actually, I didn't put this on the agenda just because I hadn't thought of it. So it's matters not foreseen by the chair. To review the Community Preservation Committee report that Susan sent to y'all.
Oh, yeah, I'd love to have that all set, because
I
Tony's
did make-
expecting it tomorrow. I know I PDF'd it, it's easy
That's
to
fine.
just redo it.
I did make one change that I'm member at large. I'm not, there's no housing committee for Hubbardston, so,
Oh, okay.
so I did change that. I left Sanda as chair, even though after that vote she wasn't. But this is for 2023 and she was.
So
then.
Housing Committee, is that,
I'm a member at large.
oh,
You had,
That's what
I changed it.
oh, you're
I
all
can
set.
email you the changed version.
I thought I sent a PDF, didn't I?
You did, but I can change a PDF.
You can?
Yeah.
I thought that's why they were so good. I just learned something.
Yeah.
Okay, well, while you were at it, one of them needed the, oh, you fixed that too. There was a hyphen that was too long.
I know.
So I was gonna fix that before.
But I can send this back to you in PDF form with
Oh, that would be
change.
great, and
So-
then I'll just send it
and
on
you
to
can send it
Tony,
on.
because they were supposed to be in like last week or something, but I didn't get the message.
Oh.
And Rick didn't either until, well, anyway, so she said, okay, I'll see the open space one and the CPC on Wednesday, and I said, yes, you will. Because it's so hard when you're responsible for herding all this stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and you're waiting for this one or that one.
But did anyone review it and see anything that needed to be changed other than that? I mean, that was just really just housekeeping. It wasn't.
It really was, but I like to get into the nitty gritty instead of just the unicorns, out in the rainbows. Because as you go over past reports, you really want to get a snapshot.
Oh, no, I'm not finding fault with this. I'm just saying what I made the changes on
Yeah.
was minor stuff. It wasn't
Oh, yeah,
major
right,
stuff.
right. But just as a concept, why not put some nitty-gritty in there? so
Yeah,
you
let people
really
read it
know?
while they're in meeting
Yeah.
waiting. You
Yeah,
know?
okay, well, and thank you for getting those.
You're welcome.
I saw it right before I sent, I said, oh, I'll get it when it comes back, so.
So, but
great.
did anyone have any comments to add to this?
No additional comments from my side. Thank you.
Okay. And there was no motion need to be made on that. That was just literally reviewing it. So now we get to the,
So that's accepted, that's all done, right? Right.
yep. We get to the CPA applications from Hubbardston Council on Aging and First Parish Unitarian Church. And Hubbardston Council on Aging is not going to be putting an application in time for this meeting. So we don't need to worry about them. Which brings us down to the only application that we passed over the last time, which is the First Parish Unitarian Church. And we had a lot of discussion about that, and we had a lot of questions about that. So I do have an email with some answers on that, on part of the questions. So let me just find that because I forgot to print it out.
Okay. And while you're at it, this is some of the information from the coalition website that's helpful.
Thank you.
There we go. Charts and things. It just.
But let me first grab the meeting, the answers. That because the questions were asked and they didn't respond. And I'm sorry, I can print them out or email them all to you guys later because I didn't think to do that. Should I send it? I have so many emails from my book club. Those people are way too chatty. All right, so the roof. Some of the updates are. Let me see these questions. That the roof leaked over a number of years. The winds are very strong up there, so minor leaks and more major leaks during major weather events. The leaks are at the front. The leaks at the front are from poor flashing around the steeple area, which got fixed with the steeple repairs about 12 years ago. That was one of the questions as to where the leaks came from. Another one was that magic years, because you had asked about Montessori schools or something.
Right.
They did have a daycare in there in the 80s.
Yeah.
And the
they did-
90s.
Yeah.
Well, they just listed the late 80s, early 90s.
I
My
toured
granddaughter
that.
went there,
I
yeah.
toured that place when Katie was a baby.
I toured it
So
too when
she
Patrick was going to kindergarten. Because remember they had
Right?
that, like the 2 days on, 1 day off
Yeah,
thing?
yeah.
And I was looking for a part-time.
That was like
Yes?
98, 99.
Excuse me, audience member Christine?
Sorry to interrupt, Chris Barbera. Both of my boys went to Magic Years. Ray left, he was 5, so at least 2004.
Okay.
It was still
Yeah,
active
see?
at
Yeah.
that point?
Yes.
When did it kind of
I
shut?
think it was like a couple years after that.
Okay, like 206 or something?
06, 07,
Okay,
somewhere
all
around there.
right.
So the response from the First Parish folks were that they did extensive lead paint removal in the entryway and downstairs and renovations to the stairs, bathrooms, etc., but they never recouped their costs. And they went on to say some things about the owner, and they said they basically subsidized her business for far too long. So it was
Wasn't
not a good fix.
relationship,
No.
yeah. Okay. Not a bad concept, though. It could
No,
be.
it could be.
That's
Yeah.
not handicap accessible at all, but
Oh, there's lots of
And
that
so
sort
the
of
other
thing.
question was, does the church have a long-range plan?
For maintenance. That's
Right.
my- yeah.
It doesn't seem to. Not sure of future plans, but keeping this historic building in the best shape possible is our only current goal. What else are they saying? You had asked about the historic significance of it or rating it as individual properties. They didn't seem to see why that would make a difference
Okay.
as far as grant monies or anything else.
But it is in the National Registry Historic District on the Common. And
It's a-
and
it's a-
that's
that's-
since 2000. So that's pretty impressive.
Right,
there.
that includes the church, the common, and the burial grounds.
Correct.
As a group and as a group district and not as an individual.
Right.
So they weren't sure why that separating those would be of any
Well-
benefit.
They might be able to get some funds for the building. I don't know.
They might be able
They
to.
have that very valuable clock in the steeple that we don't
Okay.
even talk about because Tangway was supposed to go and restart it again, but it's quite a major
There's a
investment.
person, I talked to the town administrator about this last week.
Oh, good,
There is a
okay.
woman, a young woman,
Brianna.
a youngish,
Brianna
who
Whitney.
does do it.
Block.
Yes.
She winds it.
Oh, okay. All right.
But not regularly. I think during the
Right.
winter they don't do it.
Yeah,
because
but
of
there is,
the-
there is a person that the town deals.
She's
doesn't
on the
deal with.
historic commission, and she has
yeah,
their places on the garden tour. I plug it
So-
every time I go.
So yeah, they do have someone that's still doing that, it's still being maintained.
Okay.
I believe that there was some town money spent on that back in the day. But yes, they do have someone. So now is where I, as chair, get to just break so many people's hearts on this project. I did talk to Boston, the CPA, which is the state-run organization. They really didn't see how doing work on the sanctuary roof or ceiling wouldn't be problematic. I
Really?
did talk to the town administrator, who then talked to legal. And so the legal response from Carolyn Murray, who's our legal counsel, she has some concerns about whether the money would end up mainly helping the church itself rather than preserving historic buildings or other benefits. The application doesn't talk about public benefits because it's a stretch. Things not really open to, I mean, you can go into the church because it's a church. So that was a bit of an issue. The legal takeaway was that it seems like the church needs money for general building repairs and maintenance, which it's water damage in a ceiling. The other question that you had asked
Yep.
about insurance, they never put a claim in because the insurance premium would likely go up if they put a claim in. So it's a real stretch. When CPA basically said that they didn't see how doing maintenance work on the sanctuary would be an allowable use, that pretty much made me go, huh. And then when legal counsel for the town came back and said, I don't see how it would be an allowable use, and added, I guess, some colorful information to the town administrator that didn't get passed in the email. You all can discuss it, you can come up with other views, we can have a debate about it.
Are there still services there?
There are.
There are.
They're
Infrequently.
Right.
But regardless, it's still a church, it's still the sanctuary, it's still tax dollars, and it's a privately owned building.
Yeah, but is this time for just general
Yeah,
discussion?
that's what we're here to
Okay.
discuss this.
Because it is the oldest building, it's our meeting house. It was originally a meeting house.
They both were.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's fine,
So
that
they-
doesn't make a
so there were
problem
two.
for
They
the
had
other.
the way that worked out was the town had one, then there was an argument amongst the people, and
they
they
split.
separated into
Right,
two and built
right.
up two new ones.
Right.
So
Historically, though, it has been a civic and religious center.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, they've had town meetings in there and voting in there. And when I saw Joyce today, I just checked it. I said, does that sound right? Because you do research, and then you forget exactly where you read that. And I thought, man, and that was, they said, up until the 19th century. So that's, so it was a civic place also because it was a meeting house first.
right,
And
and
it needs to
but
be-
it turned into it turned away from that purpose though, right?
Not that long ago. I'd have to find out exactly, because I said to Joyce, well, how would one research that? And you can look at the town meetings and see where it was held. And that's one of my projects, but I just discovered that today. And so before we just throw it out, I'd love to spend some more. When the warrants aren't due until March 18th.
now they're due. Yeah,
That doesn't give
April
us a whole
1st.
lot of time.
it doesn't give us a whole lot of time, and they didn't pursue an insurance claim.
That for me is very problematic, and the reason I'm saying that is because it becomes now the fallback of the CPC to pay for what, in theory, should have been an insurance claim.
True, but then in her
Her reasoning for
application,
not.
she mentioned the insurance twice, saying that in order to keep the building up, because it becomes,
I'm
it
gonna
starts to
I'm just
break
going to
down.
interject again. Her answer when they were asked about the insurance, the answer was, we never
it in.
contacted
I
our
heard that.
insurance company because our rates would increase.
And so
That's not, their insurance company turned them down. The insurance company said that they hadn't done their due diligence. It was they didn't want to incur an extra cost for their
the
church.
interior
For their
problems.
church.
Right, but then the roof though was done, and the envelope is sealed now, right?
Right, the
Which
roof
is
was done
good.
twice. The town's
Yeah.
paid for the roof twice.
Okay. Twice in
But
how
not,
long?
Twice.
nonetheless, I think, for me, the biggest issue right now is from what I'm hearing in terms of the response that was given, is if no claim was put in, we would give the appearance of providing funds where insurance, a commercial carrier, should have been there to provide a relief to the church, a financial relief. And instead, now it is the community that is providing that relief, where they are paying the funds to this insurance company for remuneration in the event of such a risk happening.
Right.
And that, for me, is problematic.
That, I mean, I could see if they had put in for insurance or if they had raised money as a
only
even
received a
then,
partial.
I'm gonna be honest, I can't see it. It's in the sanctuary, it's maintenance, it's not restoration.
Well,
And it's not,
let's look at the chart before we just jump right in. There are three terms that come to mind here: preservation, rehabilitation, restoration. And they all kind of
Right.
overlap. Maintenance is something, like my husband and I are having this, that's like you put in the new filters all the time. That's
right,
maintenance.
we denied a CPC monies for the library, for the town offices to paint their walls, because that's maintenance.
That's painting, yeah.
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 Well, we gave it to the library for other parts to restore historic things.
Right,
But we
or
wouldn't
new signage, that was just last summer. Remember? Yeah.
Well, we had to do emergency exit signs because
Yeah.
that's by code. But I mean, the rest of it was lighting and like the rest.
Mm-hmm.
But the actual offices, we wouldn't allow Chris's office to get done using CPC money because it wasn't historic preservation or renovation, restoration. It was maintenance.
Well, let's just hear what preservation is. This is the DOR. This is their chart. Community Preservation Fund allowable spending purposes. This is the easy chart. This is the quick chart. And this is the thorough nitty-gritty. Historic. Let's see. Preservation. Protect personal or real property from injury, harm, or destruction. That's our oldest building. If we don't take care of it, we, the town, somebody, it's gonna fall apart. Okay. Rehabilitation and restoration. Make capital improvements or extraordinary repairs to make assets functional for intended use, which in the past has been civic meetings, voting, and town meetings, including improvements to comply with federal, state, or local building, and that would be maybe,
Emergency exit signs.
yeah, stuff like that. Or the lead paint, maybe, because that's not good for anybody, but especially children, right? Or access codes or federal standards for rehabilitation. So,
Okay.
Okay.
I've read this chart a million times.
Yeah.
This is the answer from the CPA, the Community Preservation Coalition Group that made this chart. There's multiple paragraphs. But one of them says, he goes through back and forth a couple ideas. Like, all that being said, the work that this particular organization is applying for would be very difficult for most CPCs to fund. It is interior work in the sanctuary that is used for religious services. As you'll read in the Acton case, which is a Mass Supreme Court case against Acton,
I thought that was religious symbol, but okay.
the closer the work relates to the religious mission of the organization, the more problematic it is. Let me know what the attorney says. So the attorney says, the application doesn't talk about public benefits. It seems like the church just needs money for general building repair and maintenance. What else does it say? She looked, meaning she being Carolyn, looked it over and has some concerns about whether the money would end up mainly helping the church itself rather than preserving the historic buildings or other public benefits.
What if it's
Yes.
both? It's not a,
It's not something we can wiggle out of and say, this is what we want to do because it's a great building. And it is a great building. And it is a historic building. And it is important to the town of Hubbardston. But does it qualify for historic preservation funds of tax dollars? In my
well, do
opinion,
we
it does
want it
not.
to become destroyed? What's going to happen if that roof, which has been
The same could be said about the Wheeler Brothers store.
the what?
The old Wheeler
Well,
Brothers
so
stores.
we missed that one, and I think that's
The
unfortunate.
painting
myself.
is chipping off now.
Yeah.
That, if...
Yeah, but
if-
it's not ours. That's private, right?
So isn't the church.
What?
The church
The
is
church
also
building is
private.
private.
Yes, but it was used in the
But it's
past. It's
not
our
now.
oldest building.
But it's not.
Okay, then I will pose you this question. If
Okay.
we, as CPA town stewards, don't take a step out in faith and let the people decide, like we did with the other church.
But our job as this committee is to see if it's an
Meets the
allowable
guidelines, yes.
use. And it doesn't seem, based on the town council and the CPA group, to meet a definition of allowable use for historic preservation monies.
Yeah.
I disagree, but I think people should have a chance to have their say.
But that's not, this committee's group isn't
Well, we
about
could
that.
vote on it. I'm really putting you folks on the spot.
No, you're right. I mean, this is, we are representing
Yeah.
the folks.
We look at the
who-
guidelines.
You know,
Yeah,
if you
but
hit
what-
my
what-
car, I don't want to file a claim because my insurance is going to go up. I mean,
Well, that doesn't make sense. No, I get that.
I
So
think- I
they
think-
may have misstepped there.
I think we represent the people from, obviously from different
Yeah.
perspectives, but we represent the people of the town of Hubbardston. And I agree with you, it is us who have to present our opinions as we have, and you have very well done, presented your opinion, which I respect. And we have other opinions also. And so I think ultimately the vote will make that decision. And so from my perspective, I'd like to propose, having had this discussion, I heard your point of view. Unless there's anybody else who wants to prepare something to say, I think I would like to make a motion that we vote on this here.
So how do we phrase the motion?
No, it's not a motion. It's really it's a vote. It's a vote to accept or decline the proposal that has been presented to the CPC to provide funding for the repair as described by the
First Parish.
by the church and for the purposes that they have indicated.
May I ask a question?
Absolutely.
The damage to the ceiling that they're looking for help with obviously was directly related to the leaky roof, which was fixed. So have they received any more damage to that ceiling? Or did the damage stop, the water leak stop the damage that was happening?
I couldn't be sure of that either, because the
picture.
roof was fixed quite some time ago.
Yeah,
But they talked, in their answers to the questions that we asked, they talked about a steeple that was replaced, or the flashing was replaced 12 years ago. So if that damage goes back 12 plus years,
right.
I don't know. Now, the other side of the coin, and I've heard this a few times, and again, it's rumor, but I've heard it from many people in the town, is that they're thinking about selling that building. Because there's 6 women, they're in their
Right.
60s,
Right,
there's not an active minister,
right.
and that puts us, now, that puts us in that puts us in an interesting spot, you know?
That's the most horrible thing to say at this point.
But I don't know-
Unfortunately.
I don't know that it's
Who's
true or
gonna-
not, but
you
when I...
want that church to turn into condos?
No,
but I don't know,
It's a
think that would
historical
happen.
building, so that's not going to happen.
Right, it's
Why
deemed-
not?
Well, it's deemed historic, and it's received historic funding from the CPA.
Not the
which would
building
mean-
itself,
No,
just the common.
the roof got CPC money
You
twice.
just talked about the clock.
And there's actually a deed restriction on that church, as far as similar to the church down there. They can't change the outer appearance.
Right.
Because CPC monies has been used.
Okay.
So, but I don't know how true that is. I don't know that they're going to do that. I just know
Right.
that their answer was the 6 older women, and it's cost them $20,000 a year to maintain this place. If they were to sell it, the town would have rights to first refusal.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if that were to happen, then it could become town-owned property, and then more monies could open up.
And then we're in the same predicament?
Well,
And-
Well, no, because then it's a different
if I may
situation.
say that it would be a very different. I have been in cities and towns where public facilities have actually been rented out. Say, for example,
Mm-hmm.
in schools where they do have church services. Korean churches, for example,
Or
is a
vice
very-
versa, yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Korean churches is a very good example where that has been done because they did not have funding. They could not easily build a church,
Narragansett has a church service
and they
on
have
Sunday.
oftentimes taken school facilities to start like a meeting, and then eventually became into a service. So it's different, in my opinion, the way I look at this here. If you use a public facility or public building, and then you have, say, for example, a religious service there for the purposes of a particular type of a community, versus it being a church that belongs to the entity that is having and conducting the services and asking for funds to preserve that. And so And I believe there's other avenues for potentially those preservations. I mean, for years, we belonged to the New Church of Jerusalem in Cambridge, and they had funds that came, as a matter of fact, from their national organization. It was a very small congregation, maybe about 20, 30 parishioners who came in, and it was an old, very historical, I mean, and Helen Keller went there, and she was a student at Radcliffe. The point I'm trying to make here is that if this becomes a facility that gets sold, and if it's sold to a proprietor who then makes the arrangements, that's fine. If it comes back to the town, or the town decides that they want to purchase it, then yes, they can theoretically come back to us and say, we would like to have funds from the CPC in order to preserve this great building and to restore this great building. I personally, I hear you, and I sympathize with with where you're coming from. I am really concerned about now 3 items. One is the insurance issue. The second one is the legal opinion, and the third one is the opinion that came from the CPA in the Boston. So we might be swimming upstream here against a really strong current.
The other side of it is their project comes in at $41,350. We cannot bond it because we will not get a loan for this.
Right.
Yeah.
It would have to. We would gut half of the CPC general fund
Yeah,
to fund this.
yeah, that's true.
Which means we eliminate any chance of using CPC monies for a lot of other projects that could come down
And then the
pipe.
church gets worse and worse, because if it's a leak,
The leak's fixed.
But the leak
no,
is
yeah, but the area where it is, she used the
Have you
word-
been inside the
Yes,
church to
yes.
see it?
And as a matter of fact, there is an annual brass concert where the public is invited, and this last year there were 70 people there. I counted them, because each year I say, why don't more people come to this? And the concert's free. It's funded through 2 sisters that had their church drowned when the Quabbin was made. So this is an endowment that just keeps on for years. Anyway, so so the public can go in there, and maybe, I don't know. You've outlined it very well. I wonder if we could ask them about the insurance.
We
Well,
did.
It's too late.
We did.
I
we
mean,
did
we did.
ask them.
And their
And their
answer was what they said, namely
Well,
that
she mentioned it several times. The insurance is suggesting they get this fixed so it doesn't get worse. She said that twice in the
Well,
Yes,
she
but
didn't
they
say that-
also said that they can't afford
to have a claim.
claim it because they can't afford the
Well, I
rates
mean, and
and
both
rates.
might be true. They don't eliminate each
So,
other. That's-
did we ever ask them if they contacted the big unit, like every, like the
This is-
Catholic Church has their
Yeah, I'm not
bishops
sure
or
how-
Diocese
whatever.
and,
They're
yes.
Unitarian
Did they-
Universalists.
Yes, but they must have an overall
Right, that's what I mean, is there
guru
some-
that's gonna have money in a pot
The-
that fixes
The
things.
response, it seems as though a handful of people, six women,
Right.
6 families, that they are what's funding that building. That they are the
Okay,
ones that
so
pay
They
for
pay
everything.
for the heat. They, because you have to keep a certain amount of heat, even
course
when
you
people
do.
aren't in there, so the paint doesn't chip off. So it's tight. She mentioned that too.
So I mean, it's a
it's
small group
small.
of people.
So they've
people
never.
are getting older.
I mean, there's a building in Gardner that the Unitarian Church just took over, and I mean, it's not unlikely that another Unitarian church could buy this and keep it as, put more money into it. And
I mean, it's depending on what that group chooses to do.
Right.
If they choose to pursue, selling it to another religious order or whatever.
Right.
That's completely.
Right.
They're a private entity. They can do that.
their prerogative.
Can they though? They're on the land the town owns. They own the
No,
building.
the common, there was a 20-year legal battle in the
Right.
town about the common. The common the town owns, but the church in its land the church owns.
Okay.
So there is a separation.
And then the town owns the clock, which is not uncommon.
The town, I don't know that we own the clock, or if the town just was kind and said, we'll
Yeah.
give you some
No,
money
that's
for the
that.
clock.
They did that a lot.
About
They did some
12
strange things.
years ago, Gary Kangas had a meeting where everybody could go and see the clock and how the mechanism was, and it
Did
was
he mention
a
ownership
room
during
on
that
it.
at
It's
all?
just understood
It came up
this
to town meeting. There was a vote on funding for that.
Yeah.
Oh, the clock itself,
Yes.
but not
Past
ownership.
history either.
It isn't
Also,
Just a
we
clock.
just
I
need to
mean,
move
you're
forward.
looking at a room
It's a
full of
mechanism.
So we have
that-
this is lovely, but we have to get back to the vote to accept or decline the proposal from the First Parish Church as presented for $41,350, which he's made the motion, he being Francois.
And before, I just want to just say, if I was a townsperson and I listen in on this meeting, I'm not on group, I say, gee, I wish that actually it wasn't specifically on the agenda, was it? That we were going to discuss that today.
Yes, it was.
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yes, it is.
Right there.
All right, there it is.
I was very clear on there that that's what we were discussing. And we're going to go back to this, I'm just going to put this out here. The job of this committee, similar to the job of the select board, similar to the job of the planning board, is to meet to discuss issues that are pertinent to the town and decide how it should be presented to the town. That's our job. It's not to say, okay, you know what, this is messy, we don't want to do this, let's just have the voters say. Because that's not, our role is to see whether or not it's an allowable, defined use. Not to say we like it, and I'm not against this building. I would love to see this building restored. I'm just saying, according to our legal counsel and the Community Preservation Coalition in Boston, it is murky at best to try to use CPC money, CPA money for this.
And puts us forth for liability.
It puts us forth for a lawsuit. If someone wanted to come out and say separation of church and state, and we can't, I mean, they're not replacing a painting or fresco on a ceiling. They're replacing a damaged board on their ceiling in their sanctuary.
Yeah,
And the only thing that it would benefit would be the parish.
the building, because...
But it benefits the parish, who's the owner of the building.
Okay.
And the users of that the primary users of that building. I would ask that we take a vote at this point in time
Okay.
for the purposes of completing this. I mean, I've heard the opinions and I sympathize with what I'm hearing, but I think it's now time potentially for us to
Okay.
have a vote.
So how would, again, somebody's going to help me with the wording, because the way I'm wording it's not going to work. So
How did
vote,
you have it down?
I just have vote to accept or decline the proposal for the purposes as they were indicated in the application from the First Parish
I think that
Unitarian
is
Church.
sufficient.
Okay.
So you've made that motion, then, right?
So do we have the second?
Yeah.
I'll second.
Francois made it. Mary second. So it's going to have to be it can't be a yes or no vote, it's accept or decline.
Which is a yes or a no.
Well, we agree.
But she could say yes and say it's to accept, and you could say yes and say it's to decline.
Well, say
No, but yes, I mean, to your point.
Okay.
We're accepting or we're accepting their
Okay, so we'll just go with accepting and get rid of the declining.
Yes. Okay?
Yes.
I think we have
Yes.
somebody from
Excuse me?
the audience.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yes, Mike Stahl, 5 Lombard Road. Madam Chair, before you vote, are you going to request public input?
Sure, if you would like to give
And you're
some.
the public, let's hear it.
Yes, I'm just the public at large. Now, I'm going to use this as a general example, but I go to a lot of various types of meetings in town.
We know.
And so I hear people say things, and now I'm one of those people saying things. However, most of the time I bite my tongue because I don't believe some of the things they say are fact or they're misleading. So, I'm a re-resident of Hubbardston. When I came back, I checked out a book from the library, didn't I? We might have first met. Checked out the history of Hubbardston. I do not recall that off the top of my head. However, I just had dinner with some other residents in town who have been involved in the town history over the years, and she's mentioned to me several times which is the first meeting house. And with my heart, I feel for what Susan has been saying. With my head, I say we need to have the facts. And I just talked to Mrs. McCauley, and she's the one
Oh,
that
of course,
told
yeah,
me
yeah.
about this, and unrelated to CPC. It's just she talks to me about the history and has shared much of it. And she just said that the church down that way, because they changed names
At the
throughout
intersection
history,
of
at the
Lieutenant
intersection
Road
of
and Route
Williamsville.
6. I'm sorry, yes.
That one was built in 1827 and was not the first meeting house. She said the first meeting house.
That's the one we're talking about. Yes.
Oh,
Yeah, we're talking about that one.
Yes.
then I'll just sit down and be quiet. See, this is the facts. We have to.
Yeah.
So there's a sanctuary down there.
1737 or something like
Yes,
that. I should have
she's
that.
going to verify.
And that
Okay,
one is
So that one
1827.
doesn't have. That one has a sanctuary too, though.
Yes.
It does.
Okay.
Both have sanctuary.
I heard sanctuary there, and when the 100K was committed to the siding.
Outside, yeah.
Siding.
I heard a lot about sanctuary. I stand corrected. I confused sanctuary with sanctuary. Thank you very much.
The sanctuary was never.
So did you have an opinion on the project?
Mike Stahl, 5 Lombard Drive.
You're not required to give your opinion in the meeting. I just was wondering.
No,
Okay.
you asked, and I'm willing to share it. I will go back to the point, well, I had some questions, and one of them was, how much money have we spent on these 2 buildings and when? Once again, my heart goes with the historic preservation,
Yeah.
but my head, based on these opinions that I've heard, my understanding of these things, I worked in the public sector on historic preservation, and normally we looked at the public view. Typically it was the outside, unless there was some significant public event that occurred inside. Normally that was a very, very low priority, if a priority at all. It was to preserve what they called the public view, so from the outside.
Right.
So I would put it at a lower priority. The fact, I'm going to reiterate what Francois said. You know, we have the issues of the insurance claim. You know, we have the issues of the legal opinion. These are not minor hills to climb. I think they're approaching mountains. Once again, my heart goes with historic preservation. My head goes with this. Have you prioritized the list of these things? Because I think it's a matter of priority and not just this one single issue. Normally I'm used to racking and stacking requests for money, and you go with the higher priority.
And if we had multiple projects coming before us that required monies, and we would have to score
Oh,
it.
is this the only one?
There's
of this?
2. One's open
2.
space that we could easily fund, and that's
Yeah.
already been passed.
It's not a prioritization issue that is
Okay.
at stake here because
It's
the
a
money.
yes or no.
But maybe it should be, because we spent 100K on that. And I'm very pleased, because here we've got the town project finished, and that looked like hell. And it still has some areas of purgatory that needs fixing. Okay, but we're not putting another.
Okay, but that's,
Okay,
I'm sorry.
No, I've got a point
Madam
here.
Chair, thank you for asking for my opinion. Thank you very
Priority
much.
would be, the older the building is, the more it's prone to falling apart.
Yeah.
That's definitely.
And
the older
and
building.
that's something that the Historic Commission folks, when they have their meetings, could look through the town and find properties that they feel are historically significant, and we should put priorities on funding it either through CPC or grants or through whatever way we
Okay.
can do.
Yeah.
So because the church brought it, not the historic commission?
Because it's a privately owned
I know,
building.
but it probably would have been helpful. The historic commission is mostly older folks, hasn't met for months.
It doesn't matter who brought, in this instance.
Well, I thought you just said if the historic commission
Well, no, if
prioritized.
they want to come up with a list of priorities of what historic properties within the town of Hubbardston, the town should be supporting in preservation.
Yeah.
That's the Historic Commission's purview.
Right.
They could definitely do that.
Oh, that's right. But we haven't met for months. And Martha is not in the best of health,
No.
and
The
so,
other 2 are connected with the church.
yeah, Brianna and Carol
So-
are members of the church.
So again, we're back to, Mike, thank you for your opinion. We all listened to it, we all heard it.
So we as a committee, I'm sensing that where you guys are at, I get it, but I look at the bigger picture, that we have an opportunity to give the town an opportunity to say, gee, we'd really like to take care of that. Yeah, it's the inside, but the public has used it in the past.
Okay.
They do come to it. Okay,
Yep.
so I'm done
you,
with my...
but you've
Yeah.
you've said it. You've shared
So-
that. We all agree.
So, before we
now
vote,
we're back to
I
voting.
would just hope that you think about that, because I'm tired of, okay, how do I phrase this in a very positive way? I think the people, and they may vote it down if they get a chance, or they may say, gee, I didn't realize
Okay,
what
so,
shape it is.
well, let's go with that. Say somebody wants to put something completely illegal in the middle of town, but they want to do it, and then it's some kind of recreation thing, but they want to do it. And we as a committee, if we say it's not really an allowable use for CPC monies, we should just say, well, but these people want to do it, so we should let the town vote on it.
No, that's not comparable. I'm not
But,
gonna like
well,
that.
whatever event, whether it be whatever it
Can
is.
I,
I'm just-
may I
go
ask a
ahead.
quick question? Is there precedent at all for a decision to be passed from the CPC to, other than the proposals that were accepted, right?
No.
But,
Yeah.
but is there a precedent for the CPC to not have made a decision and pass the decision completely onto the town?
It is impossible for CPA monies, which is what the money comes out of CPA. The money is to be spent without approval
From the
by the CPC.
This
Okay,
is...
so
So the CPC,
We're the keeper,
there is no
we're the
precedent for us to
gatekeepers.
say the town can
Precisely.
decide, not us.
So what I'm saying
Mm-hmm.
here is that this group here of individuals who are here have to take a vote,
Yeah.
come up with a decision to accept or not accept the request that has been presented by the First Parish Church.
Correct.
And if we were to accept it, it is now the town's responsibility to hear what we as a committee are proposing and for them to accept it or decline it.
Right.
So I think our role is very clear here. We need to vote as to whether or not we're accepting this here as a group, and we can have dissenters, which is fine, one way or the other. And I think we should just go ahead and do that vote.
Okay,
right
I
now.
mean, that's where you are, but I would urge you to look at the larger picture and the fact that we only have 4 historic buildings here. We really, it's not like we're littered with them,
I understand.
which is a blessing, because we have the library, and that's going to be a money pit forever, but they have wonderful trustees who are on the job. We have Williamsville Chapel. We have the other
I'm sorry,
churches.
and I feel really mean, and I understand, I do get where your heart is, and our hearts are in the same place. We'd love to be able to do this.
And I think
we
you
haven't
could.
we haven't voted on it yet,
I
so we
think
don't
you
know how it's going to
could,
come down.
and I think
But we
people
also
should
have
have a
another item
chance.
to run. We have
Oh, yeah.
another agenda item, so
Okay.
we need to
All
actually
right.
have this
Oh,
vote.
okay, you feel you need to take the
Who
vote.
is in favor of accepting the project as the proposal as presented by the First Parish Church?
I am, and I'm lone wolf, and that's okay.
And who is not accepting it? Not out of cruelty, but out of the fact that it doesn't meet allowable use.
Correct.
Okay.
Again, the merits, I want to make sure that it's
I
very
want the
clear.
church to know, too. It's not
The
that
merits are, the merit is there to preserve this here. I would like to encourage, obviously we have listeners, hopefully, at some point in time, who are going to view this here. If there are any individuals who have ways in which they feel that funds could be made available for this type of a project through other means that would not necessarily have the same type of conflict, that they should maybe either let us know, let you know, or let the church know how these funds may be, or grants can be gotten, or can be received. Because I think it absolutely makes perfect sense, and for me it's a shame, but at the same time, it's just not doable based on parameters that I'm seeing right now. Enough said
I'm
from my end.
listening, but I really think the people should have a chance, but we've made our
Yeah.
voice heard. I hear you.
So we're moving on. The next thing on our agenda was the bylaw review. I do think we are going to need to have some bylaw changes made, because one of the things that they have is by law, we're supposed to have representatives from Historic, Dolores, Parks and Conservation Commission, hopefully they send someone our way. Planning Board, we have. And then 3 at-large members. We have 2, possibly 3 in the audience somewhere, maybe. But there's a housing committee listing, and we don't have a housing committee.
And that we need desperately.
Well, no, they folded the housing committee into planning board. We had one, and then they folded into
So the
planning board.
planning board
So we
has the
need to
housing
have-
group meeting actively?
No, they don't, that just eliminated the housing
It does
committee.
not exist anymore, the housing committee.
So,
There's an affordable housing group, or
which is
existed.
that's an advisory committee, it's not
Exactly,
a,
but
it's not a
there's no
full-time.
housing committee anymore.
So in order for us, it's impossible for us to meet the bylaw, the way it's written as to who has to represent on CPC. There's no way for us to meet that because we don't have that committee.
But we desperately need that representation.
But we
But
don't
the
have that
committee does
committee.
not exist.
There's no
and we
committee.
So
cannot-
maybe it needs to
How do we
exist, is
form
what
Yes,
I'm
but we
saying.
cannot,
We
cannot
had that committee and
instantiate
then
it.
they folded that committee because they didn't have enough people on that committee.
Yeah. We
So-
cannot, we cannot instantiate such a committee. That would have to be something that the town administrator has to
Good on that
look into.
committee,
How does that get
Did you read the
reinstantiated?
article about Milton in the Globe 2 weeks ago?
Yes, I do.
Okay,
Yes.
Well, we're not Milton. Well, no,
we're not
it
there.
is relevant. It is relevant. I won't take the
No,
whole
no, no, but I
evening.
mean, but Milton's thing is about the MBTA thing. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about bylaws,
But we will be in a few years.
maybe. And when we are, that'll be the housing committee, not CPC that has to do that, if they have one.
Yes.
That's
So-
one of the key points of CPC is housing. That's one of the
On the CPC
main buckets.
I'm the CPC rep on the Affordable Housing Committee. I am aware of the CPC's thing, and I'm getting tired now. But that's not what we're talking about now. Right now, we're talking about bylaw changes that need to be made. We
Right,
need to have
and
the
if-
bylaw written in such a way that the housing committee that doesn't exist isn't listed as one of the bodies. Now, is there another committee that might make more sense to have on here? I don't know. Like maybe, I don't, the select board,
Guys, wait a minute. Danielle, there are 3 buckets. What are they? Open
okay,
space,
I know.
historic,
Susan,
and what else?
I know.
Recreational land.
And open space,
Housing.
historic, and housing. I'm
And then
aware of
housing,
that.
yes.
But what we're talking about is a committee,
That does not
like similar
exist.
to this, like the housing committee used to be an elected board. It doesn't exist anymore. So we have a rule saying we have to have a housing committee, an elected housing committee member on this board. We don't have a housing committee. So we're
Okay.
never gonna meet that. So what I'm talking about is when we make a presentation to select board or to town administrator about our bylaws, we may want to include that we need to remove a non-existing committee from our listing of committees.
And if such a committee comes back in the future,
Then it could be.
then it can be added again. But right now, we cannot be in compliance
only-
with something that is not existing.
Well,
It
let's
only
get rid
comes-
of one of the others then.
It only
Because
comes-
housing is critical.
But housing
There's
doesn't
no
exist.
That's not the point.
Yes,
though.
it is the point.
Well, of course, it's the point that we need it, but the point is, it's here right now and it doesn't exist.
And so to
we
get
shouldn't have
quorum.
it on the piece of paper.
Right, so if we have
Because
to
we are
have
now
9
acting
members.
illegally because this committee does not
If
exist.
Mary didn't get into town on time, we could not have had any meeting tonight, because we would not have had quorum.
Yeah. The quorum would not have been there. Technically, we would not have had a quorum. We could not even have had a vote tonight.
Oh, I understand that.
So if-
So if
But
we can
you're
eliminate a
saying
position that doesn't
because we don't
exist,
have this, we don't need it, but we do need it,
No,
so we should
nobody
have it.
said we didn't need it. That's ridiculous. Of course we need it. It just
we just
isn't.
said it doesn't
so-
exist.
It doesn't exist. So that's another whole can of worms that somebody should open at some point in the history of Hubbardston so that we can stay as small as possible and not let anybody grow anywhere.
And so,
that-
actually, that might
Okay.
be lovely, so.
No, no,
okay.
no, no.
for-
Let's, Danielle is tired.
Okay.
I'm exhausted. Let's get on with our
so
meeting.
I can't believe what I'm hearing. Oh, yeah, okay, keep going.
Okay, then we need to start this meeting at 5 o'clock when I've had my
I don't get home
coffee.
till 6.
Okay, 6:05.
So yours,
So, I mean, it's literally, it's not a shift in anything. There is no housing committee in Hubbardston. Whether or not they need one, there isn't one. So by us having that space on our list of mandated members, that puts us into a quorum situation where if any one of 5 can't make it, we don't have quorum, and we can't act on anything, which makes us not particularly useful as a committee.
Right.
And it doesn't make sense to have a position listed that doesn't exist
No, we
on
have-
the bylaw.
exactly.
In my opinion.
I happen-
agree with that.
I happen to agree with that, and more importantly, I think it needs to be stressed to the, and we can stress it at the town meeting, that the housing committee, because it does not exist, we can no longer provide anything even in that area, which I think is the point that you're trying to make here. And that is that we as an entity, the CPC at this point in time, can really not do very much from a housing perspective because there is no housing committee. It's not the fault of the CPC, it's just there is nothing that the town has been able to do to attract sufficient impetus from town members to participate and be part of a housing committee that is viable. And so as a result of that, it's now even hampering us in the CPC because we are not going to be able to meet a quorum. So
Can't get
it's like,
things done.
and it's
Get things
a
accomplished.
cascading effect. So what I think Danielle is trying to say here and trying to do here is trying to make sure that we're not running into the jeopardy of the CPC becoming non-functional because we need at least 5 members right now.
So if one position is eliminated, are we down to 8
Yes.
then?
Exactly.
So what do we have then?
Then
2
you
at
only
large.
need 4 people, 4 individuals.
No, we have the current makeup of the committee. If we rewrote the bylaw to remove the non-existing committee from the list of people that are going to be in there, we would have historic, open space, planning board, parks, conservation commission if they bring a member forward, and then 3 at-large members. So we'd have 8 members in this board versus 9, which we will never have that member because there is no housing committee.
Yeah.
So I would love if someone would make a motion to allow me to rewrite the bylaw, removing the phrase housing committee, and only that. Everything else would remain the same.
Well, let me ask you this here. Are you going to rewrite the bylaw to present it for us to accept? Or
Yes, because we have to have another meeting to go over the numbers.
in that case, you do not need a motion for that?
Okay, so then I'll just rewrite that.
You can just rewrite it,
Okay.
present it to the committee here,
Yeah.
and then we can review it and accept it at
Okay.
that point in time.
So that gets us the bylaw commission done. What was the other thing I had to do? We are going to have the warrant written as far as like the open space project that's going to go forward, the regular housekeeping, the buckets. Did you hear anything from the state about?
That was in the coalition.
I saw their
that
email.
And he said conservative numbers.
Yeah.
And so originally, because Kelly and I touched base with this a little
Oh.
while ago.
I don't think they know what you're talking about. Do you know what she's
the
talking about?
estimate. You were talking about the
I
estimate.
was talking
I'm
about
just
exactly
thinking-
the same thing, but I don't think
okay.
that they were aware of
Every
what it
year,
was.
we need to write for the fiscal year coming up what we estimate will be coming in.
Excuse me.
Because the registry
Just
of
get out of the
deeds
hospital.
has gone way
Sorry.
down
Do you need some
because
water?
nobody's buying houses.
I was
Okay.
wanting to go.
There's less money coming in, which means the state match will definitely be lower. And so Kelly originally had said, 110 sounds good. This last year it was 100,000. We estimated, and we were just about right on. It was
Good.
pretty good. And so I was going to counter with 105. And then we talked, we emailed the other day, and I said, he said in his email, be conservative. And she said, if he's saying be conservative, he knows something we don't know, so let's stick
conservative.
with 100,
I'd like
which
to
would
be
be 10,
excused. I
10,
just
10,
got out of the
65, 5.
hospital.
I'm sorry, what?
I just got out of the hospital and I'd like to be excused
Oh,
and go home.
Yes.
Okay, before I get
Hope you're
coughing.
feeling better. Oh, yeah.
That'll officially push us out of quorum.
Is that
Yeah.
okay?
So,
Okay.
before you leave,
Okay.
so we're going to be out of quorum in a minute.
Are we voting
So
on anything?
we'll-
We're not voting on anything right
Can
now.
we do-
So what we're going to do is we're going to set the next meeting date because we do have to come up with the bucket numbers and we do have to come up with the wording for the warrant.
For the,
So town warrant.
Trail.
Opening of the warrant's going to be March 18th, closing of it will be April 1st. So we have to meet somewhere between March 18th and March 29th. Can anyone do that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
give us
tell- tell-
throw a date out there and let's.
So
If
the
you
warrant.
want Santa here, it has to be before the 25th.
Okay, so what if we did like, what night's good for you? I'd just go, I mean,
Oh, no.
Just make a date, I'll come.
okay.
I went,
I hear you.
All right, so,
Do you need a ride home?
no, I'm fine. Just-
Are you sure?
Oh, yeah, I did good though. I haven't coughed
Yeah,
all night.
yeah.
what date works best for
Holding
you?
my breath.
François? You're the one that travels most.
The only problem with me is the next planning board meeting is on a Thursday.
Okay,
So, and I believe, we have a planning board meeting tomorrow and the 23rd or,
So you'd have it the 21st would be the
so it's
other
going to be the 21st,
one. Okay,
yes. I have
so
to
what
be
if we
very
did like
careful about
March
that.
19th? Would that work? It's a Tuesday?
What day of the week is that?
It's a Tuesday?
Tuesday.
Okay.
And we'll
At
make it for
7?
6:30, would that be better for you?
Would that be better? So you
Yeah,
come
it
straight
can
from
work for
work?
me.
Okay.
Anything's fine.
6:30?
Okay, so now, motion,
Yeah.
who would like to make
I
the
don't
motion
work
to
on
adjourn? Okay,
Okay, second the motion,
So was that 6:30 or 7? I missed it.
6:30.
6:30.
Okay.
Non-debatable. We need to vote, though.
March 19th.
Okay, everyone in favor of adjourning?
Yep.